Hey, I'm Peter Verdell. I sing and write for a band called Act As If. My family moved from California to Washington State when I was 10. It was very rainy and there wasn't a lot to do, so I kind of became best friends with my radio. And that's when I really fell in love with music when I was probably 10 or 11. I hung out in my room and listened to the local rock station, which was called 107.7 The End, and fell in love with bands like the Smashing Pumpkins and Weezer and Green Day. Those are sort of the first bands that I really fell in love with. And then I started playing drums in junior high and high school. I played drums in the high school jazz band, and then started joining some rock bands that were really, really bad, loud rock bands. But I never really thought that music was something I could do, professionally, until I moved to California for college, and I met a ton of people that were super driven to really play for a living, and I sort of realized, if I work hard, I think I could do this. So I kept playing drums. I slowly learned to play guitar and sing. And I worked for a record label after I graduated college called Drive Thru Records, sort of a pop punk label. And when I worked at the label, that was sort of a turning point mentally for me of just I think I need to play. I don't think I'll be happy working in the industry if I'm not trying to play music. So I sort of refocused on playing the drums, playing guitar, singing, and eventually recruited a bass player and a drummer, and we made demos, and that's how Act As If started. And I recorded our first full length by myself. I played everything on it, and then when I realized we needed to start playing shows, I recruited a solid band. When I worked at the record label, part of my job was to listen to all the demos that came in. So I would spend hours a day listening to CDs being sent in from all over the country, all over the world to the label. And so I got familiar with a wide range of the talent that existed, and even the really good bands. I naively thought, I can do this. I think I can do it just as well. So that was sort of what drove me to quit working at the label and start my own stuff. It was sort of a naive idea that it was easier than maybe it was or something. I've learned since that it's hard. It's hard to make good music. But I kind of needed to have that I guess naive perspective on it to make that leap. There are so many bands that I look up to. This might sound cheesy, but U2 is sort of one of my all-time favorites. I don't think everything they've put out is good, but from a young age, actually a babysitter gave me their album Octoon Baby, which is my favorite album of all time, actually. It became my favorite album. And so I look up to U2 a lot. I think Bono is one of the best singers. So when I practice a lot of old U2 songs. I practice a lot of old Coldplay songs. I love Chris Martin's voice, at least in the first couple albums before it was super pop. There's a lot of vocal kind of heroes. Jeff Buckley is insane. I'll never sound like him, but it's fun to practice his stuff. In terms of songwriting, I grew up loving bands like Blink-182 and Jimmy Eat World, and Weezer, and so it's I have this whole weird mixture of sort of pop and pop punk, and then also darker stuff like the Smashing Pumpkins or the Deftones, and it just I think all kind of swirls around and becomes Act As If, and for better or worse, that's sort of I don't think I've intentionally set out to sound like somebody else or to write like somebody else. I love music, and I let it all kind of sink in, and then I don't know, I just let it go from there. I think some good comparisons that I've read, like in blogs over the last few years, would be like Walk the Moon. I think we fit in that world, or maybe a little. I've heard Group Love. I don't know if we fit so much. Young the Giant, I think we fit in that world. I think with Act As If, our albums have been somewhat different from album to EP to album to EP, or whatever the chain of things we put out. It's definitely grown. I think the first album we did was a little bit more, had maybe more of like an emo rock bent to it a little bit. I don't know if that's fair to say. That might be like putting myself down too much. I think it's better than emo rock. But the last EP we did was a lot poppier, like kind of like like an indie pop vibe, and yeah, so I think those like Walk the Moon comparison is accurate. Group Love, a little bit of like The Strokes. Something that is surprising that I listen to that people might not know. My favorite band of the last 5 years is The National, and people would never guess that listening to Act As If, because we sound nothing like The National, but I have been obsessed with them for the last few years. On our first full-length album, it's called There's a Light, and we were lucky in that a bunch of songs from that got licensed for mostly a lot of MTV shows. So the songs kind of got out in the world, which was so exciting, especially for someone who had not had a band before. And I would say from that album, the songs that did the best in terms of like people finding out about it, this song called Please Be Worth This, which was like an acoustic song that was sort of it didn't fit really well with everything else on the album. It's like a 2-minute quick acoustic ditty, but it was on an episode of Jersey Shore, and a bunch of people like fell in love with it, and that was so awesome. My favorite song on There's a Light is the first song called There's a Light. That's my favorite song, and always just felt so like powerful to play live. I miss playing that song because we don't play it anymore. Our second release was an EP called The Iron Is Hot, and for sure the best song on that was a song called Oh My My. We did a video for that song that MTV premiered. K-Rock Locals Only started playing that song a lot, and that song was sort of like a turning point for the band in terms of being kind of an unknown band to being like a local band that people maybe would start to hear about. So yes, if you're gonna listen to There's a Light, definitely listen to Oh My My. I think it's very accessible and just a good kind of pop rock song. Then we put out a full length called Steady, and all this stuff is on Spotify and iTunes and everything else. And on Steady, it's funny, the song that has the most streams on Spotify is called Keep Me By Your Side, and it's a song I wrote about my dad, who died when I was 5, and I wrote that song sort of imagining what his life was like, and so people seem to like it, so you can listen to Keep Me By Your Side. My favorite song on Steady is actually the first song called Steady. I love it very much. And then our newest EP is called Lovers Online, and I think that the first song on that, All the Girls, is the best song, my favorite song. And that is also the most like well-received song that's come from that album so far. It has, I think, like the most streams or whatever so far. Yes, so that's our music you should check out.